The detention cell hummed with a frequency that made Karlix's secondary stomachs churn. 43 cycles he'd been stationed on Outpost Vex-9, and never, not once, had a prisoner made him nervous. Pirates, smugglers, the occasional war criminal from the Andorian conflicts. All of them eventually broke under standard interrogation protocols. But this thing, this human, Karlix adjusted his sensory stalks and studied the creature through the reinforced plasma barrier. It sat there, calm as a hibernating Nexus WYRM, hands folded on the metal table. No antennae, no exoskeleton, no protective scales. Just soft, pale skin stretched over what appeared to be a catastrophically vulnerable frame. 2 eyes. Only 2. What kind of prey species evolution resulted in such limited visual range? Subject designation, Marcus Vale. Karlix read from his datapad, mandibles clicking nervously. Origin world, Earth. Classification. He paused, triple-checking the reading. Classification, DEATHWORLD, Category 12. His assistant, a young Vrexian named Pick, chittered in disbelief. That can't be accurate. Nothing survives Category 12 environments. The gravity alone would crush most species before they evolved higher consciousness. The scanner doesn't lie. Karlix tapped the screen, where a slowly rotating hologram of the human displayed impossible biological readings. Dense skeletal structure, redundant organ systems, regenerative tissue capabilities. And look at this. He zoomed in on the creature's hands. Retractable calcium-based weapons at the end of each digit. You mean fingernails? I mean natural daggers that regrow if damaged or removed. Pick's skin flushed a sickly violet. By the ancients. Karlix straightened his uniform and activated the barrier's communication channel. Time to get answers. He'd been doing this job for 17 standard years. One freakish alien wouldn't rattle him, no matter what the bioscanner claimed. Human, he said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into something the creature could comprehend. Do you understand me? The thing called Marcus looked up, and Karlix felt his thermal regulation system spike. Those eyes. Predator's eyes, front-facing, designed for tracking prey across distances. The human smiled, revealing flat, grinding teeth interspersed with pointed canines. Yeah, I hear you. Marcus's voice was deep, resonant, the kind of sound that traveled through walls. Nice setup you've got here. Very minimalist. Sarcasm. The translator flagged it immediately. A prey species using humor as a defense mechanism? Or was this something else? Karlix pulled up the interrogation protocol, his claws trembling slightly over the keys. You were found in Sector 88, approaching a restricted mining operation. Your vessel was unmarked. Your credentials were falsified. You will explain your presence, or we will extract the information through neural scanning. Oh boy. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the metal groaning under his weight. How much did this thing's skeleton weigh? Neural scanning? That's adorable. You guys tried that already, remember? Blew out 3 of your machines before your tech guy started crying. Pick whispered, he's not wrong. The feedback loop nearly killed Technician Vorp. Silence, Karlix hissed. He focused on the human again, trying to project authority. You will cooperate, or face termination. Termination. Marcus rolled the word around in his mouth like he was tasting it. See, here's the thing about threats, buddy. They only work when the person you're threatening believes you can follow through. I have 40 armed guards on this station. 40 guards who've never fought anything more dangerous than a drunk cargo hauler. The human smile widened. I've read up on Galactic Council species. You're all from nice worlds. Safe worlds. Places where the biggest predator couldn't take down a house cat. House cat. A small Earth predator we keep as pets. Pets. This creature kept predators as companions. Karlix felt his chromatophores flicker with involuntary distress signals. Your arrogance will be your downfall, human. Marcus stood up suddenly, and despite himself, Karlix took 3 steps backward. The human moved with fluid grace, each muscle visible beneath his clothing as it coiled and released. A walking weapon system, disguised as soft flesh. Let me tell you something about Earth, Marcus said, approaching the plasma barrier. My planet tried to kill me every single day of my life. The air has toxins that would dissolve your lungs. The water is filled with microorganisms that wage war inside our bodies. The sun bombards us with radiation. We have storms that level cities, earthquakes that crack continents, and predators. He paused, eyes gleaming. Predators that make your council regulations look like bedtime stories. Karlix's threat assessment glands released a burst of adrenaline-equivalent hormones. So here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued. You're going to answer my questions. Then you're going to let me go. And if you're very, very lucky. The human pressed one hand against the plasma barrier, and the energy field flickered, struggling to categorize his biosignature. I might forget this ever happened. Karlix looked at his datapad, at the flashing red alert that had appeared across the top of the screen. Caution, apex predator detected. Extreme threat level. For the first time in his career, Karlix understood what it meant to be prey. The silence in the interrogation chamber stretched like pulled taffy. Karlix could hear his own respiratory system wheezing, a high-pitched whistle that broadcasted his fear to anyone with functional auditory organs. Pick had retreated to the far corner of the observation room, all 6 of his limbs trembling. You cannot make demands here, Karlix said, though his voice modulator crackled with uncertainty. This facility operates under Galactic Council authority. Protocol 793 clearly states that, protocol. Marcus laughed, and the sound was wrong. Too loud. Too confident. It bounced off the walls like a physical thing. You know what's funny about protocols? They're written by people who've never actually faced real danger. Let me guess, the Council's biggest security concern is economic fraud. Karlix's mandibles clicked involuntarily. The human wasn't wrong. The last major military conflict in Council space had been 300 cycles ago, a brief territorial dispute over mining rights that ended with strongly worded sanctions. Your species has been fighting each other for what, 10,000 years straight? Marcus tilted his head, and the gesture reminded Karlix of a Vectan hawk analyzing wounded prey. Yeah, I did my homework before I came out here. Downloaded your public records. Earth has been one continuous war zone since we climbed down from the trees. We've perfected 600 different ways to kill each other, and that's just the stuff we're willing to admit publicly. Barbaric, Pick whispered from his corner. Maybe, Marcus shrugged, his shoulders moving in a way that suggested barely contained power. But it made us really, really good at survival. So here's the situation, Karlix. Can I call you Karlix? Your nameplate is facing my direction. The interrogator felt a spike of panic. Standard procedure was to never let subjects learn their captors' names. It created psychological connections that compromised objectivity. How had he been so careless? I came to this sector because I heard rumors. Marcus continued, pacing now, 3 steps left, 3 steps right, like a caged predator measuring its enclosure. Rumors about a mining operation that's been making workers disappear. 47 beings, gone without explanation. The council says its equipment malfunctions, but the families? They know better. Karlix's secondary brain processed this information while his primary brain struggled with the immediate threat. The Helion 7 mining incident. Classified. Buried under 7 layers of bureaucratic red tape. How did this human know? I don't know what you're talking about, Karlix said automatically. Sure you don't. Marcus stopped pacing and stared directly at him. Those forward-facing eyes locked on with unnerving precision. Let me tell you what I think happened. Your council, in its infinite wisdom, found something in that asteroid field. Something valuable. Something worth covering up. And when workers started asking questions, well, accidents happen. Right. This is conspiracy theory nonsense, Karlix protested, but his thermal signature was spiking. The bioscanners would show his stress levels climbing into critical ranges. Is it? Marcus pressed his face closer to the plasma barrier. Then why did you arrest me the moment my ship entered the sector? I wasn't breaking any laws. I filed proper approach vectors. My credentials might have been slightly modified, sure, but nothing that warranted immediate detention and a Category 5 interrogation setup. Pick made a strangled sound. He knows about the interrogation categories. Someone doesn't want me looking around, Marcus said softly. Someone with enough authority to scramble a detention team within minutes of my arrival. That's not standard procedure for a random border crossing. Karlix felt his world tilting. The human was dissecting their response protocols like a xanther surgeon working on a patient. Every question revealed another layer of understanding, another piece of information that shouldn't be accessible to an outsider. Who sent you? Karlix demanded, trying to regain control of the situation. Which faction? The Orion Syndicate? The Free Traders Coalition? Nobody sent me. Marcus's expression shifted, and for the first time, Karlix saw something other than predatory confidence. Sadness? Anger? The human emotional spectrum was difficult to parse. One of those missing workers was my friend, Jax Torvin, a Belasian engineer. Good guy. Sent messages home every week like clockwork. Then nothing. Silence. His family hired me to find out what happened. You're a bounty hunter. Private investigator. Bounty hunters chase criminals. I chase truth. Marcus pulled something from his pocket, and every alarm in the facility screamed. Guards burst through doors, weapons charging, targeting lasers painting red dots across the human's chest. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply held up a small holographic projector and activated it. An image materialized above his palm. A Belasian male, tentacles arranged in what passed for a smile among his species, standing next to Marcus. Both were holding drinks, clearly at some kind of social gathering. Friends, Jax saved my life once, Marcus said quietly, ignoring the 24 weapons aimed at him. Hauler crash in the Theta Nebula. I was trapped in a collapsed cargo bay, oxygen running out. He cut through 3 meters of reinforced bulkhead with nothing but a plasma torch and sheer determination. Carried me to the escape pod himself. The hologram shifted, showing news reports. Official council statements. Casualty lists with Jax Torvin's name highlighted. The official report says equipment failure. Explosive decompression. No bodies recovered. Marcus's voice had gone cold. But Jax was the best engineer I ever met. He wouldn't make rookie mistakes with pressure seals. So either your report is wrong. The human's eyes locked onto Karlix again. Or someone is lying. The detention facility's main power flickered, just for a second, and in that moment of darkness, Karlix realized something terrifying. They hadn't captured Marcus Vale that he'd let them bring him in. The power surge sent Pick into a full panic molt, scales flaking off in a shower of violet dust. Karlix's threat display activated involuntarily, his neck frill expanding to 3 times its normal size, which in retrospect probably looked more ridiculous than intimidating to a creature from a death world. Stand down. Karlix barked at his guards, though his voice came out higher than intended. Lower your weapons. Sir, the head guard, a Thulian named Grex, kept his plasma rifle trained on Marcus. Protocol dictates that we don't start a firefight in a pressurized station with a being whose durability specs red, like a military combat drone. Karlix pulled up the bioscan data again, his claws shaking as he scrolled through the information. His bone density alone could withstand direct hits from half your weapons. The other half would just make him angry. Marcus gave a small nod of appreciation. Smart bug. I'm not a bug. I'm a Vrexian, and there are 14 distinct biological differences. Karlix caught himself and stopped. The human was baiting him, and he'd almost fallen for it. What did you do to our power grid? Me? Nothing. Marcus spread his hands innocently. I'm standing right here in your detention cell, remember? No tools, no weapons, no technology of any kind. You confiscated everything when you brought me in. That was true. Standard procedure. Strip the prisoner, scan for implants, isolate completely. And yet, then explain the power fluctuation. Can't. Marcus smiled that predator smile again. But if I had to guess, I'd say your facility's security systems just detected an unauthorized access attempt. Someone trying to slice into your mainframe from outside. Strange coincidence, right? Karlix's primary and secondary hearts both skipped a beat. He spun toward the security console, where warning lights were indeed flashing across multiple screens. Pick scrambled over, his remaining scales clicking against the floor. Intrusion detected. Pick read, his voice climbing 3 octaves. Multiple access points. They're in the personnel files. The incident reports. The classified. Oh, ancestors, they're downloading everything. Trace it. Karlix shrieked. Cut the connection. We're trying. The intrusion countermeasures aren't working. It's like the system is fighting us. Pick's manipulator tendrils flew across the haptic interface. Wait, that's impossible. The hacker is using our own security protocols against us. They have administrative access codes. Marcus examined his fingernails with elaborate disinterest. You know what they say about Earth technology. We had to get creative. When your whole planet is trying to murder you, you learn to build things that work under pressure. Our AI systems are particularly aggressive. Survival of the fittest coding, we call it. You planted a virus in our system, Karlix said, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. Before we arrested you. That's why you came here. You wanted us to bring you in. Did I? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That would require me to have accessed your systems somehow. But I never touched your network. Your own scans prove that. I'm completely isolated in this cell. Then how? Maybe you should ask yourself when the last time you updated your firewall protocols was. Marcus leaned against the wall, utterly relaxed despite being surrounded by armed guards. Galactic Council standard security, right? Written by species that consider password protection cutting-edge defensive technology. Meanwhile, Earth has been fighting cyber warfare for 200 years. Hackers, corporate espionage, nation-states trying to crash each other's infrastructure for fun. We've got 12-year-olds who could crack your military-grade encryption before breakfast. Pick wailed in dismay as another security petition fell. They're accessing the Helion 7 files. The real reports. The ones Director Vale said to bury under priority seal. Karlix felt his respiratory system seize up. Director Vale, High Council member, fourth most powerful being in this entire sector. If those files went public, stop this, Karlix demanded, turning back to Marcus. Call off your hacker. We can negotiate. Negotiate. Marcus pushed off the wall and walked back to the plasma barrier. Now we're talking. See, that's what I wanted from the beginning. A conversation. But you had to go with the whole intimidation routine. The threats. The posturing. Very inefficient. What do you want? I told you already. The truth about what happened to Jax Torvin and the other 46 workers. Marcus's expression hardened. And don't feed me that equipment failure story. I've seen the preliminary reports your AI is currently liberating from your servers. Atmospheric contamination. Biological hazards. Unauthorized excavation into quarantine zones. You found something in that asteroid, didn't you? The observation room went silent except for the frantic clicking of Pix claws on the console and the soft humming of overtaxed processors. Karlix made a decision that would either save his career or end it spectacularly. Grex, deactivate the barrier. Sir, regulations clearly state that Category 12 subjects must remain. I said deactivate it. The plasma field shimmered and died. Marcus stepped through the threshold, and every guard in the room tensed. The human moved with careful precision, hands visible, no sudden movements. He stopped exactly 1 meter from Karlix, close enough to be conversational, far enough to be non-threatening. Up close, the height difference was even more pronounced. Marcus stood a full head taller, with a mass distribution that suggested he could probably bend Karlix into a pretzel without much effort. Thank you, Marcus said simply. Don't thank me yet. Karlix pulled up a secure file on his personal datapad, one that existed only in his private partition. What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels. If this information leaks, I'll be executed for treason. My family will lose their status. My offspring will be marked as security risks for 3 generations. Heavy stakes. You have no idea. Karlix hesitated, then made his choice. He turned the datapad so Marcus could see the screen. Helion 7 wasn't just a mining operation. It was an archaeological site. We found ruins, ancient technology, weapons systems from a civilization that died out 50,000 cycles ago. Marcus studied the images, his expression unreadable. Let me guess. Someone decided to turn it on before understanding what it did. The contamination spread through the facility in minutes. By the time we realized what was happening, Karlix's voice dropped to barely a whisper. There was nothing left to recover. The victims didn't just die. They were unmade, reduced to component molecules. We couldn't even collect DNA samples for the families. And Director Vale covered it up. He had no choice. If the council knew we'd activated a xenocidal weapon system through incompetence, it would trigger a sector-wide panic, possibly a civil war. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Karlix realized he was holding his breath, waiting for the human's response. Finally, Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I believe you. The human pulled out his communicator. Raven, you there? A female voice crackled through the speaker, clear and sharp. Got everything. These guys really need better firewalls. Karlix's frills deflated in defeat. Of course there was a partner. Humans hunted in packs. Every nature documentary about DEATHWORLD species emphasized that point. Cooperation, strategy, overwhelming force applied with tactical precision. Raven, status report. Marcus said, keeping his eyes on Karlix. I've got the real hell eye on, 7 files, personnel manifests, communication logs, and about 6,000 pages of cover-up documentation. Also found some interesting financial transactions linking Director Vale to a private military contractor. This goes deeper than we thought, Marcus. Pick whimpered from his console. She's still in our system. I can see her moving through our databases like she owns them. That's because I do own them now, Raven replied cheerfully through the communicator. Your encryption is adorable, by the way. My coffee maker has better security protocols. Karlix slumped against the wall, exhaustion replacing fear. So what happens now? You release the files, destroy my career, trigger the panic I was trying to prevent. Marcus studied him for a long moment, those predator eyes calculating, measuring. Then he did something unexpected that he sat down on the floor, cross-legged, reducing his height advantage and making himself appear less threatening. A gesture of peace that Karlix's anthropology training recognized immediately. Here's the thing, Marcus said quietly. I've been doing this job for 8 years. I've seen a lot of cover-ups, a lot of corruption, a lot of people making terrible decisions. And you know what I've learned? There's usually a difference between evil and incompetence. I'm not sure which category I fall into, Karlix admitted, sliding down to sit as well. His legs were shaking too much to stand anyway. You're neither. You're scared. Marcus gestured around the detention facility. This whole station, the council, your entire civilization. You've been safe for so long that you forgot what real danger looks like. Then you stumbled onto something genuinely terrifying, and you panicked. 47 beings died because of that panic. Yeah, they did. Marcus's voice carried genuine sadness. And covering it up won't bring them back. But destroying your entire security infrastructure won't help either. What helps is making sure it never happens again. Grex, still holding his weapon but no longer aiming it, spoke up hesitantly. What are you proposing? Raven, you still listening? Every word, boss. Package the files. All of them. But don't release them publicly yet. Marcus looked at Karlix. Instead, we're going to make a deal. Director Vale comes clean. Full disclosure to the council. Proper compensation for the victims' families. And most importantly, you shut down that facility and quarantine the site until you can get actual experts to assess the technology. Vale will never agree, Karlix protested. His political career would be finished. His political career is finished anyway. Marcus tapped his communicator. Raven just sent copies of everything to 3 different independent journalists, for council oversight committees, and one very persistent Belasian lawyer who happens to represent Jax Torvin's family. The files are sitting in secured drops with deadman switches. If I don't check in every 12 hours, they auto-release. Pick made a sound like a deflating balloon. That's blackmail. That's insurance. Marcus stood up, offering his hand to Karlix. The gesture took a moment to process, human customs being what they were, but Karlix understood the intent. He gripped the offered hand, surprised by the warmth of human skin and the careful control Marcus exercised. He could have crushed every bone in Karlix's manipulator appendage, but instead he helped the Vrexian to his feet with gentle precision. So here's the deal, Marcus continued. Vale gets ahead of this. He makes a public statement in the next 48 hours. Admits the mistake, outlines the corrective measures, faces the consequences. In exchange, we frame it as a tragedy, not a conspiracy. Incompetence, not malice. The council gets to save some face, the families get truth and closure, and maybe, just maybe, you all learn something about taking risks seriously. Karlix's mind raced through the implications. Political fallout, certainly. Vale would be stripped of his position, possibly face criminal charges. But controlled disclosure was infinitely better than the alternative. If those files hit public networks without context, the panic would be instantaneous. And if we refuse? Grex asked, though his weapon was now lowered completely. Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then the files drop automatically, except now the narrative is about a brutal cover-up instead of a terrible accident. Your counsel looks actively malicious instead of merely incompetent. And trust me, in the court of public opinion, that difference matters. You've thought this through, Karlix observed. I had a 9-hour flight to this station. Lots of time to plan. Marcus checked his chronometer. Clock's ticking. I need an answer in the next 60 seconds. or I walk out of here and let the chips fall where they may." Karlix looked at Pick, who shrugged helplessly. He looked at Grex, who nodded slowly. Then he looked at the bioskin display, still showing Marcus's classification: Apex Predator, DEATHWORLD Origin, Extreme Threat Level. Except the threat wasn't violence. It was truth. "I'll contact Director Veleth," Karlix said finally. "But I can't guarantee he'll cooperate." "Then I guess we'll find out how much he values his legacy." Marcus headed toward the door, and remarkably, no one tried to stop him. "Oh, and Karlix? One more thing. Yes, next time you arrest someone, maybe do a better background check. I'm not just a private investigator. I'm a licensed mediator with the Independent Arbitration Guild. This whole thing, it's going in my case report. Your counsel is going to get a very detailed assessment of your security vulnerabilities, free of charge." Karlix felt his respiratory system wheeze again. "You're helping us? Helping you not make the same mistake twice." Marcus paused at the threshold. "My planet tried to kill me every day of my life. Yeah, but it also taught me something your counsel seems to have forgotten. The universe is dangerous. Pretending otherwise doesn't make you safe. It makes you vulnerable." He walked out of the detention facility, past stunned guards and flashing warning lights, leaving Karlix standing in the wreckage of everything he thought he understood about security, protocol, and the nature of strength. Pick approached cautiously. "What do we do now?" Karlix looked at the bioskin one last time, at those impossible readings that suggested humans were simultaneously fragile and indestructible, prey and predator, victim and survivor all at once. "We learn," he said quietly, "and maybe we start taking the universe seriously again." Outside, Marcus Vale disappeared into the station crowds, just another traveler passing through, while somewhere in the data networks, the truth waited patiently for Director Veleth to make his choice. The interrogation was over, but the real questions were just beginning. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.